Activity 5. To separate shiny materials from a group of materials. Things needed: wood piece, copper wire, piece of cotton, paper, iron rod, rubber, aluminium rod, and sandpaper. Method: rub the surface of each material with sandpaper. Observe each material, whether shining or not shining. Separate the shining material from the non-shining material. Observation: the surfaces of materials like iron rod, aluminium and copper wire are shining. Surface of materials like wood piece, paper piece and cotton are not shining. Hardness. When we press a piece of cotton with our fingers, it gets pressed easily. Materials that can be compressed easily are called soft materials. Foam, melted wax and sponge are some examples of soft materials. But if we try to compress or cut an iron nail, we cannot do so. Materials that cannot be compressed easily are called hard materials. Most metals such as iron, copper and aluminium are hard. Because of this quality of hardness, metals are used to make household utensils and factory equipment. Solubility. Take a glass or a beaker and fill it half with water. Add half a spoonful of sugar in it. Stir the contents with the spoon. Wait for a few minutes and observe it. You will find that the sugar has disappeared into water. This shows that sugar has dissolved in water or that sugar is soluble in water. If we taste this water, it is sweet. Why? Because the sugar is still there in the water, but its particles have become so small and spread uniformly in water that we cannot see them. Now, take another beaker and fill it half with water. Add half a spoonful of sand in it. Stir the contents with a spoon and observe it. We find that the sand settles down at the bottom of the beaker. The sand does not disappear in water. We can say that sand does not dissolve in water. Solubility of solids in water. Substances that dissolve when mixed with water are said to be soluble in water, whereas the substances that do not dissolve in or mix with water are insoluble in water. Transparency. Hold a glass tumbler in front of your eyes. See through it. You can see all the objects around you. This happens because glass is a transparent material. So, materials through which we can see the objects clearly are called transparent materials. And this property of the materials is called transparency. Some more examples of transparent materials are water, alcohol, air, and cellophane paper. Some kind of plastic bottles are also transparent. Shopkeepers usually prefer to keep biscuits, sweets, and other eatables in transparent glass and transparent plastic containers so that buyers can easily see these items. Thus, materials through which we cannot see objects clearly are called opaque materials. And this property of the materials is called opaqueness. We keep our things in closed iron almirahs so that they cannot be seen. Cardboard, metals, wall and wood are some examples of opaque objects. If we hold a butter paper in front of our eyes, we can see partially through it. So, butter paper is a translucent material. Those materials through which we can see the objects partially are called translucent materials, and this property of the material is called translucency. Grounded glass, frosted glass, tissue paper, dust-laden air, fog and mist are some translucent materials. To observe the solubility of various solid substances in water. Things needed: 5 test tubes, test tube stand, water, common salt, chalk powder, plastic, copper sulfate, washing soda. Method: take the test tubes and fill half of each of them with water. Add a small amount, half a spoonful of common salt to the first test tube. Similarly, add the same amount of chalk powder in the second test tube. Plastic in the third test tube. Copper sulfate crystals in the fourth test tube. And washing soda in the fifth test tube. Shake each test tube vigorously and keep in the test tube stand. Observe them after a few minutes. What do you observe? Observation. You observe that the common salt, copper sulfate crystals and washing soda dissolve in water, whereas chalk powder and plastic do not dissolve in water. Activity 7. To observe the solubility of various liquids in water. Things needed: 5 test tubes, test tube stand, water, glycerin, kerosene oil, vinegar, mustard oil, alcohol, dropper. Method: take the test tubes and fill half of each of them with water. Add some glycerine drops to the first test tube. Similarly, add a few drops of kerosene oil in the second test tube. A few drops of vinegar in the third test tube. A few drops of mustard oil in the fourth test tube. And a few drops of alcohol in the fifth test tube. Shake each test tube vigorously and place it in the test tube stand. Allow the test tubes to stand for some time and observe. Observation. You observe that liquids like glycerine, vinegar and alcohol have completely mixed with water to form a single layer. We say that glycerine, vinegar and alcohol dissolve or are soluble in water. We can also say that they are miscible in water. We will observe that liquids like kerosene oil and mustard oil do not get mixed with water. They form separate layers. We will see 2 separate layers of water and kerosene oil in the second test tube. Water being heavier forms the lower layer in the test tube, whereas kerosene oil forms the upper layer in the test tube. We say kerosene oil and mustard oil are insoluble in water or immiscible in water.